I believe then that the physical body is, first of all, it's always working for you. Even when you feel crappy, that is a sign of how hard it's working to try to get you to feel better.
Thank you for listening to my last episode of Get Unstuck with Lindsay. I want to welcome you here today with Lisa Cipkar, integrative health practitioner. Lisa, thank you for coming and being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
This is a long time coming. So I think the funnest part of this for me is that you and I were both in a really stuck place. Mm-hmm. In different areas of life. And I had kind of was approaching the end of my rope and I didn't even know it when I met you. And it was it's really important to me that, part of my journey to getting unstuck was getting unhinged and unstuck from religion, like the churchy, Sunday, hypocritical, show up, look good, and really truly like lean into the heart of God and who he is. And that's what I help a lot of girls kind of come through to, whether they have a faith or not. And so in my journey, kind of finding real, true Jesus followers who actually also understand kind of that shift as I realized, the ways of the world and things like Western medicine weren't always serving me. And as I had to shift into kind of this new space of integrative medicine or natural or like a holistic approach, there's some really weird stuff out there. And so it's like you're desperate and you're sick and you're kind of trying something new. And then who do you trust? And right. And so when it comes to being a Christian, one thing that I know is if we are really on track and really standing in what God has called us to stand in, as far as any role that we have in life, whether it's our work or moms or wives or whatever it is, when we come against strife and trial and hiccups and hard things, really great mentor once taught me, she said, this is great. She said, it means that you're on the right path. If you weren't moving forward and with the heart of God and really, truly, expanding the kingdom of God, the enemy would have no business trying to stop you. And I just mentioned that because Lisa and I just spent the last 15 minutes with me trying to mess with internet that everybody knows by now has been one of the biggest hiccups for me. There's just no reason in today's age that we should have internet problems. I'm not that far out of town, but I am. And I've had to then navigate to my old office with a background I don't love after a friend she goes, you're kind of a little OCD when it comes to your backgrounds and your plants. I'm like, guess what? I don't get to be today because we had to follow where the internet was. And I'm just we're just hoping and praying that this stays a strong connection. And if it doesn't, then let's just take that as a sign that we're on the right path and doing the work. So as I lay the foundations for this podcast and everything that it's going to be, because it's not just going to be tapping, it's not just going to be integrative health. It's really going to be a lot of fun stuff that I'm really excited about in every area. So I need everybody to be excited until then too, but I'm not necessarily interviewing you. And I'm really excited for the way that you were willing to do this with me because we are overdue for a conversation. And I think that as a lot of people kind of in our fields, we get to know each other, we meet and we're like, hey, let's talk. I feel like we could really help each other out, whether it's each other or clients. And we kept saying let's talk. I want to talk. I want to really hear about you and hear about what you do and your journey. And we have done this now for, I don't know,
maybe 6 months at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
probably. And we've never had our conversation.
No, do not pass go.
We never talked to make sure that, really, this has been challenging and in everything that's unfolded for me since I met you. And what's crazy though, is that conversation was do we pass go? And what's really sweet, and you said it, is the kind of the theme for this is trust. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yes, it is, because we can't get unstuck unless we feel safe, right? We don't feel safe unless there's trust. And we both passed go without ever really, really digging in to what the other person does. So I want to just kind of share that with the listeners, because there was so much goodness in the way all of this unfolded, but we both have worked together quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like did a trust fall into your care. And so right. And I'm like, even looking at some of my supplements I got last night, right? And I'm texting you and I'm like, I don't know what these are. Like, what do I do with these? And then you tell me and I'm like, okay. Like, I used to need to know like why. And now I'm like, no, it's fine. I totally trust Lisa, as with all of my physical health, as much as I trust me with my emotional health. And so I'm just hoping that we can kind of dialogue a little bit about how we landed here, and also how cool it is that there's so many women who have found themselves in our exact same shoes. Mm-hmm. And every single day women are searching. So would you just share how you found me and a little bit about what that looked like for you on your end, what you were looking for, why, and we'll just take it from there.
Sounds good. I honestly don't remember how I first came across you, but I was the classic Instagram lurker, like for months. I have been going through probably the most challenging season of my life. It started in the fall of 2020. I joined a Bible study as a result of feeling a new type of stress that I had never experienced before and seeing it really manifest in my body. And that threw me back to when I was sick, like absolutely, totally sick 10 years ago, lost everything in life. And it was really triggering. Like there's no better word for it than like, I was just feeling constantly triggered. So there was no safety, not with me and my body, or even like me with me, let alone what was going on outside of me in my environment that I was being forced to go through. And so this Bible study was really transformative in that it took me from the legalistic background that I was raised in to actually truly experiencing what the gospel and grace actually mean, like for the very first time in my life. And I'm grateful for the way that I was raised. I mean, we went to church 5 times a week, 3 times on Sunday, and it was like very structured and very rigid. And there was a lot of rules and regulations. And I do want that even as a mother, for my son, for him to grow up to know the Lord that way. But I always had questions and I always struggled, and I was the quintessential like good girl. I never even towed the line of being bad. And so when bad things started happening to me and I couldn't explain it, I was really spiraling. So this Bible study kind of set me up for then what turned into, just little brush fires around my feet to the world was burning down just a couple of weeks after I finished that study. And so the last couple of years were really difficult, and not because of the pandemic or, anything else that was going on outside of the world, but it was my world. My world was falling apart. And so I just remember being in pure survival mode and realizing like, this is not tangible. I can't keep doing this. I have to actually like take care of myself in order to get through this, because I had become a shell of the person that I used to be. And so I realized through looking back through journals and things that there were certain techniques and just practices that I had tried in the past that were helpful, but I never continued with them. And so when I came across your reels on Instagram, it was like, hold on a second, that used to work for me, but I didn't do it long enough, right? And so I was the classic, I like to tap, but I can't find the words to do the tapping. And then that was probably why it got shoved to the side and I started, pursuing whatever else it was that came next. I don't remember the exact reel, but it was a reel that pointed to the feelings video, the longer one, the 5 feelings, where you helped us like work through fear, anger, anxiety, all those different things. And I remember taking 2 hours, the pause and play, right? Like I just kept pausing, tapping until the thing shifted. And I slept like a baby that night. And it was like, sleep is hard for me. So it was like,
can you just elaborate just a little bit more on how hard?
Sure. Suppression I think is the worst drug in the world right now. We are taught to suppress, get instant gratification, but not actually feel the feelings. And so with that video in particular, you were leading us through some of those big themes of negative emotions that we tend to push aside. And so by allowing and creating a safe space through the tapping to feel those and just small bite-sized pieces, the stress levels went down, the head got clear, and then I did not have nightmares that night. So it was life-changing.
And that was just a follow along.
That was just a follow along. That's the crazy thing. So that was sometime last summer, early last summer. And from then on, I marked you as a favorite on Instagram because I wanted to see everything that came up. And before I knew it, I was starting to tap every single day. And I was realizing the load was getting a little bit lighter and it was getting a little bit easier to go through. I don't know even how we had our first conversation, but we jumped from like, hey, thank you for what you're doing. It's so helpful for me right now. Please continue to do so, to like these really deep conversations about sanctification. And I was like, okay, she gets it.
Yeah.
And that was the start of building trust with you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think what was crazy is one time you had asked me a question and I said, I have a tap along that I made, that you might really like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were like, oh yeah, I do that one.
I do that one.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, somebody does that video. Like, I don't even know how to find my own videos sometimes because I'm just not like a video poster or organizer. And so that was just so cool. And, every time I do something like that or post something like that, okay, just one woman, like if this gets into one woman's hands and she actually just sits through it, then, her life could be really changed and there could be some relief. And, I don't always love the concept of follow along tapping or videos because there's a safety element with what can come up when we're tapping that's really profound and powerful, important, but needs to be in a safe environment. And if it comes up and you don't really know what to look for. And so that was my why behind that video, was because I noticed so many of my clients were struggling with that topic, but I also wanted girls to know that you can just stop and really sit in it and feel it as long as you need to. And so the fact that you made it into a 2-hour video is exactly what my vision was for that. And to this day, I don't know if anyone's ever done that video other than you. And it's just, that was its whole purpose. Like, I just knew I needed stuff like that where I could pause and just sit in it. So that's so cool. And then what about, I'm just curious because this comes up a lot. This came up for me as a Christian. When I found tapping, I was really skeptical. In fact, I was angry at God because I had asked him to heal my anxiety and I had asked him to help me to quit drinking. And when I discovered tapping, it worked so effectively and so quickly that I was really angry with God. And I thought, my faith is not what I thought it was.
Yeah. You feel not good enough.
Well, and like God wasn't good enough anymore either, because I thought he was good and I said he was good and I preached that he was good. And I served in the church. Like, I thought God was really good and he couldn't have been that good if he didn't heal something that this weird like tapping thing did, that so many will argue is like really woo woo or new age. Nobody can really find a definition of new age, but or right, Eastern or whatever excuses Christians want to make. And I just really wrestled with God on that. Like, why did this work and you didn't? And as I did at least still know to argue with God and that he's not offended by my anger towards him. And what was so cool is he just really revealed to me all of the dots in my life that he had connected to allow that moment to be possible, for it to even get in my hands in a way that I was willing to try it, because I thought it was weird the second it was presented to me. And so that was when I realized, I was like, you know what, if I had just prayed about this and was healed, I would be one more woman at church telling all the other anxious women to just pray about it, just pray about it. And that's like what I call Christianese, is one reason why some Christians, you and I dealt with this morning a little bit, it makes us look bad, and they're going to accuse you and condemn you and tell you to repent. And there's nothing about love in that. And so, to discover the way that God connected dots that nobody else could have connected in my life, strategized on my behalf, because I was not meant to just be healed and go into church and be one more woman saying, just pray about it.
Yeah.
And he really hand delivered me a tool at my fingertips. I didn't need to find the right therapist. I didn't need to find the right help. I didn't need to go searching. I didn't need to spend money on it. And he is the one who gave it to me. He is the one who created my body to work that way. He is the one who strategized all of those unique dots so it would be presented to me in the way that it was able to be received by me. And he is the one who healed my anxiety 1,000%. And he just wanted me to actually take it into the church and take it into the world, where people are scared and stuck and desperate and don't feel like anything's working. Yeah. So do you, as a Christian, were you skeptical of tapping as a Christian, or how do you feel? Has it hindered your relationship with the Lord, or do you feel like you use it as a crutch? Like, what are your perspectives on tapping as a Christian?
Oh gosh. It's not a crutch at all, ever. I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit, if that's okay. Yeah. I've got a few things to say in this. I never doubted tapping, but I also was pretty far along in getting my mind deconstructed from what we say is God's and what we say is not God's. But the reality is that God created everything for good, and he created it first. Satan is the one that takes, steals, destroys, and turns into evil. I would encourage people to go back to their original Hebrew and Greek Bibles and, look up some of what the New Testament has to say about doctors and medicine and all of that. What was Jesus doing when he healed people by not even being there? By walking on the road, that was energy healing. What was God doing when he spoke the world into existence? That is energy and frequency. That is light. He is of light, not of darkness. And that's him taking what he designed and making something beautiful out of it. The valley of the dry bones, again, he breathed. That's energy. That's healing. That was what brought life to all of those, dead pieces that were just laying there. I think people are really willing to stay set in their ways and not learn more about God and his character. I think we're afraid to, honestly. I love the story about the woman with the issue of blood, because the verse specifically says she had seen many doctors and spent all of her money. I feel like that's like a poke at conventional medicine a little bit, because there's so many people that end up going that route because they think that's all the option that they have. And it's really not. But a part of my journey, first in being, a chronic illness patient, and then moving into becoming a practitioner, the more I learn about the brain and the nervous system, can we not forget that we have the Holy Spirit living inside of us? Because I feel like we do. I feel like we walk around thinking like someone else outside of us has to give us the answer, when we already have him helping us in every way by guiding us with the Holy Spirit inside of us. So the actual method of tapping, you're using your fingertips, which are brain points. Anytime we press or put pressure or touch or feel something, we are sending information to our brain, and our brain is changing as a result of that. And then the different places we're tapping are just energy lines. They're the blueprint of how God built us and put our bodies together in the first place. So I don't have any problem using it. Of course, like you were saying earlier, anytime that we use a tool and it becomes an idol, then sure, it can become a problem. But I don't know that people are doing that with tapping in particular. I'm sure there's a lot
I idolized it.
Yeah.
I idolized it. It was so effective, and I was so mad at God for not being what healed me, that I used it on everything. Yeah. And I did. I was like, this works. And I had that season, and that was my wrestling, was that season of actually allowing it to become my go-to instead of God becoming my go-to. And when I recognized that that's what I was doing and really leaned into what God was speaking to me and how he had intended for me to use it, I think I took about a 6-month break. I was like, oh, this is a gift and this is a tool and this is going to be ministry. And I need to be making sure that I'm 100% in alignment with God and that I don't need this. And so I actually dropped it for about 6 months and fell back into alignment so that God was first. So I made it an idol. I used it I didn't use it wrong. I didn't use it in a sinful, for evil. But I did let it come before God. And I think that anybody can do that. And I think too, and I want to hear the rest of what you have to say, but I have to throw this out there is if the only people using the word energy are energy healers, then we're going to think that it only belongs to them. Yeah. If the only people using, energy meridians, which, like you said, like these are scientifically proven. People really love science, right? These are scientifically proven. We can finally see our energy meridian for the first time, I think in the last 10 years, we can, visually see it with the right technology. So, but if the only people discussing energy meridians are acupuncturists, then we're going to think the energy meridians belong to them. Yeah. Or that they're the only person who knows about it, or that they created it. But the truth is that it is ours. It is our body. God created us. He created those in us. So why are we just letting this group of people have it when really it's ours also? And I think that's where that rigid, legalistic, I understand why Christians come really hard at this, because I was one of them. Yes, I idolized it. I also was really skeptical and thought for sure it had to be a gift from the enemy if I didn't need God anymore. I didn't lose my faith, And so, and it's like, this is a touchy subject, but I have to say it, it's like the rainbow. That was a promise given to us from God. But if the only people using the rainbow and talking about the rainbow are one specific group of people, it's going to appear as though that is theirs. Yeah. And that if I have this like amazing vest that has the most beautiful rainbow on the back, and I have a coffee mug, and I was wearing my vest with my best friend, and somebody started talking to us as if we were a gay couple. Yeah. And I thought that's really interesting because I'm just wearing my rainbow vest. And as a Christian, I should be able to, but because that rainbow has been robbed and rebranded by a specific group of people who, as a Christian, I have love for, that's not what this is about. It's just that we all see that. Yeah. That was God's promise to us. And so if that rainbow only is being used by them and Christians back away and stop carrying their coffee cup and stop wearing their vest, then guess what? The rainbow's not anywhere near a Christian ever. And it's not going to look like it's ours. And now I'm using a rainbow and someone thinks I'm gay. So it's kind of the same. It's the same with oils, right? With energy healing, the rainbow, the list goes on and on and on of how, if we're going to allow only this group of people to talk about it and use it, then it's not going to look like it's ours. So a lot of this is taking it back for the kingdom of God. Exactly. We have to take it back. And I don't even think, tapping in and of itself is actually, it's very scientific. It's also very clinical. It's actually, even though we use it a lot emotionally, it's actually a very cold, kind of almost anti-emotional technique at its original core. It's really not even kind of spiritual in any way. Energy isn't talked about with tapping. Chakras are not talked about. It is clinical and it is cold. In fact, if it had been shown to me the way that it is at its core, I would not have been attracted to it at all. It was actually like the love in it and coming back and like really finally having permission to feel what I was feeling instead of the world telling me I couldn't feel it, and then feeling it move and change. And as all those things fell out of me, and it was sanctification. The old was leaving, the new was coming. I felt God's presence. I felt joy in my life. And so I just wanted to speak on that because I wrestled with it too. I was angry too. I was skeptical too. But that's exactly where the enemy wants us as Christians, is not using healing oils or healing herbs that God created, not using our body for healing and moving and stretching the way we were created to, staying far, far away from the rainbow. In fact, isn't it pretty common for Christians to even hate the rainbow?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, the enemy robs and rebrands these things specifically to then separate Christians from the goodness of God in areas where it's ours first.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I think when people first are reaching out for tapping, it's not with the intention of finding something to replace God because they feel like God has failed them. They're just so desperate. And I believe there's grace for that. I believe there's a lot of grace for that. But of course it's possible, like you said, just, I know there's a lot of people who like use tapping, like just for money or for manifestation. And it's like, that's not what that part's about, but to each their own and their own, on their own journey. But as a Christian, there has been absolutely no doubt in my mind, because the more that I learn about the body and the nervous system and how it actually works, the more I'm actually encouraged to use tools like that, because that's what he's doing, is he's gifting us all these different options to help ourselves. And I mean, obviously all the praise goes back to him for working through those things, but I choose to believe that he is a happy person with a lot of personality, and that he has a sense of humor, and that he does not need everything to look the same, because guess what? We're all different.
and we're not all exposed to the same tools.
Yeah.
We're not all exposed. So, and I think, and that kind of, makes me want to kind of pull into where I needed you.
Yeah.
Because I had, I thought once I moved over to the natural side, there was like muscle testing was new to me. And I saw it work really effectively for me for 10 years, a wonderful doctor who I just loved and adored. And I thought it was really interesting as I learned about things like the emotion code and body code. And it was a cool tool. And then there was some other practitioners I kind of knew and worked with. And what I noticed started to happen was I felt like if I didn't use what they were using, or I didn't have that tool, I was going to miss out, because I was sick and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And there became this like desperation, and with the desperation came confusion. Mm-hmm. And I started hearing myself asking questions like, well, why would God create us to have to rely on, having this exact tool that wasn't even around 20 years ago. But if, I'm hearing all these practitioners who a lot of them were Christians saying, this is the next thing. This is going to heal you. This is where the answer is. And so I think that's too, what I want to really encourage a lot of women is exactly what you just said. There are so many tools that some of us are never going to have in our lap and never be exposed to, or that we're never going to be able to afford.
Right.
God doesn't care. He's like lurking right around the corner with his next tool. And like you said, you'd like to think he's a happy person. I think that he loves connecting and strategizing. And I think he loves connecting his girls with each other and with real, true hope and healing. And I think that excitement is the word that really comes up for me, because after I met you, and then before I really worked with you for my health, I did land in a place where those practitioners were confusing me. Yeah. Confusing each other, confusing clients that we shared, confusing people that I loved. And the approach, I felt like these Christians are misleading people. These Christians are so obsessed with this tool and that laser and that homeopathy that they're forgetting about some very basic, simple things like testing, like testing, right? Right. Like there's still things outside of there's still things outside of all these tools. And I was really hurt and I was really injured by it. And so even though some of those things were really powerful and profound, and even used properly, with prayer, really from the heart of like my doctor I had for 10 years, who I could hear praying, over me while she really truly worked, I think, in miracles. God worked through her with me. But even that season came to an end where I saw that it really wasn't the end all be all. As you know, I spent probably 12 grand getting all the metal out of my mouth because there's that trend, right? What are the root causes? We're always doing these root causes, and, oh, let's get the metal all out of my mouth because that's my root cause. Well, that didn't solve the problem. Oh, I'll get my breast implants out now that we're all talking about breast implant illness. Well, a year later, I was sicker than I'd ever been. And I had done all the things that all of the Christian practitioners with all of their tools told me to do. And I was sicker than I'd ever been, but hadn't taken any test. I don't know, you know what to call, like anything that actually spoke to what was really going on inside my body. Because I had been so injured by Western medicine and doctors and labs that I was told were normal when they weren't even kind of normal, that I just thought that was the only testing available, because what does a person like me know? Right. And I think that's what it is. Like, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's out there, but God does, and God's good, and he's going to continue to be faithful. And like you said, he created all of these things for us and for our bodies to work so uniquely with us. And we've thrown so many of them aside as a society, as a whole. And what's cool is that when I hit my end, because I'm like, where do I go now with my health if I've trusted the natural Jesus healers and lost faith in them, and trusted doctors and lost faith in them? Where do I go now? It didn't feel like there was anything left for me.
And talk about the fear that's left at the end of that, because you started this with saying there was a lot of fear of missing out at the beginning, and that's everybody's story. We all feel that. I think that's the toxicity piece of the holistic health space these days. That fear of missing out.
You have to have this, you have to do this, you have to try this, you have to buy this. And it is, again, idolizing something.
Exactly.
Without the creator of it.
Yeah.
It can be very confusing. I think a lot of things are for a season and a time and a season, but certainly not necessarily for the long haul. And so you got me excited because you knew things that I didn't know about natural medicine, and the way that a lot of my symptoms were presenting to even like really lovely, beautiful practitioners out there who struggled with BII themselves, and who walked through my journey with me, and who are all about detox, that they would call my situation one thing, maybe it was, but I felt like you looked at it and said something totally different. And I think when I was stuck and when I was desperate and there was the fear, I would have been like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Let's do it. Let's fix it. And now it's like, okay, is there a tool I haven't tried yet? Do you know something I don't know? Is there an option for me to maybe take another step forward in a direction that might be really supportive to my body and get me to where I need to be next? Like, I think that's where that toxic side is like the end all be all and the big fix. And you're going to be healed after you do this. Like, are we ever going to be done? Which there's that. And so I kind of want you to touch a little bit on what you saw with my health, just to share with some of my people, because you are a lot, what was missing for me and my clients. I had lost the practitioners I worked with because I was no longer in agreement with the way that they used energy healing as Christians. I had to throw my hands up. I had to say, this is no longer safe for me. It's not safe for my clients. I can't support this anymore. I can't do this anymore. But then I was left kind of wondering where my people were going to be. And you were one of my people who was lurking over there on my Instagram for months that I could have been using you. But so go ahead if you would. What's actually funny is I was sharing you with a friend she was going to reach out to, and she's like, now what does she do? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I trust her now. And so I don't know.
That's okay. I don't know what I think sometimes.
I know. Well, and my thing is I was like, I don't know. She was sick for a really long time, like chronically, and had a lot of doctors who didn't help her. And then something worked. And then now she does that. Like, that's the best. I'm like, if we have been stuck and something sets us free, we are going to share it with people. And so she goes, oh yeah, I looked at her website and read all about her. And she starts telling me all about you. And I'm like, I never even looked at her website. Never even thought about it, because you were watching me. And I think you were actually watching my health and what I was talking about. And then I was like, well, I don't know, like, what do you think's going on with me? So,
Oh gosh. Okay. So God is not the author of confusion, but he is an author of details. And I think he takes great joy in the details. I'm going to highlight something for you that you just said. So it was when you broke agreement with some of those past relationships and the way that they were using healing was when we met. Did you realize that?
oh,
It's just cool the way that he works it out. I do believe that he has all the healing ready for us to grab and accept and implement when we're ready for it. Because like we could flip this and talk about some of the other conversations you and I have had and what I was not ready for that you were able to lead me to too, you know? But when it comes to your physical health, I think that one, I was getting to know you a little bit, but you were also really open and you've been incredibly compliant. And so when I asked a question, there was a ton of information in your answer that was really helpful. And I'm just a tool too, right? Like I don't want to take any accolades or anything from this because when I opened and started my practice, you know, it's called Abundant Life and Wellness for a reason. It is dedicated to John 10:10. And I promised him that it always would be. And, you know, now there's 2 practitioners instead of 1. And it's growing and it's crazy. And I need a vacation, but that's okay because he put me in this season for a reason. And I'm just a professional student. I have always loved to learn and he made me that way. And so when it came to your case, remember I kept telling you, like, I know exactly what we're dealing with. And you're like, but really? Because we haven't finished talking about everything that I've done or tried. And for me, my mind it likes the puzzles and it likes the details and it can see the big picture and, you know, the close up pieces all at the same time. And so for you, you were doing these really big, huge foundational leaps forward for your physical health, for longevity, for the lowering of inflammation as you came across them and knew that they needed to apply to your life. But what wasn't happening was that like underlying foundational support on the daily basis. And that's the piece that people don't know or realize. And because we're all so different and bioindividuality has to come first. We just had to figure out what that looked like for you. And that's where testing, but also tracking and having a really good relationship with your client is going to be all the difference in the world between a case like this and a case like somebody else's or some, you know, a different practitioner's results as well. So for you, you had a really clear picture of what your goals were, but you had also done so much in the background and had seen the improvement from it, but it wasn't enough. And you were really unapologetic about that. And I appreciate that so much, you know? So, we did just the one test, right? Cause you had some past tests that we used, but we just did the one test and it was like, yep, this is right. Here's what we're going to do. And
hold on a second. You're being too humble. So first you said, okay, and this is what's crazy. This is like, I always wanted someone to just say, here's the problem, let's fix it. And I'd be like, okay. But over time, seeing things be used wrong and things not working, I no longer wanted to hear somebody say, this is what it is, let's fix it. It became right when I was ready to work with you. I was like, nope, I never want to hear anybody ever again say they know exactly what's wrong with me and they're going to fix it because no one ever did. Well, the one doctor for 10 years, I have to give her so much credit. But even she stopped working for me because she was stuck in her ways and deals with surface stuff and couldn't get to those lower levels. And you said, I really think I know you really said it. I know what we're dealing with you, Lindsay. And by the time you said that, I was like, I'm okay with you thinking that you know what it is, even though that would have really bothered me before. I felt like I was ready again in a different perspective for someone to say, I really think I know what this is. And you told me what you thought it was. And you actually got me set up on a regimen for that. And we had not done any testing. And I backpedaled.
Right. Actually, we did. We got you started before.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. So that's part of it for me was you were like, I think this is what it is. And I was like, okay, I'm just willing to try something that somebody like you, with your story and your journey, who had trusted me. By then you had really done a trust fall into me. And I thought, okay. And so we actually started it, and I was using the protocol, and then you ran the testing, and then it came back with what?
Oh gosh.
Exactly what you said. Exactly what you said you thought it was.
And all the things. Yes.
Yeah. But that's what I loved, though, was that you did know. You actually did know, because you understood the body and you understood what symptoms looked like, but you didn't expect me to just trust that. You were willing to run the tests and show me.
Yeah.
That was really supportive for a person who had just been told for so long, it's this, just do this. And it wasn't always
there. Yeah, I've been there. It took 34 doctors to get the actual diagnosis for me. So I've been there. I try to be really hypersensitive to that with my clients, and I try to educate like every step of the way so that they can start to build trust within themselves again. Listen to what their body is saying, and knowing and being able to decode what it's saying. Yeah.
So, before we go, would you share a little bit about, because I don't know if you see me as kind of like a classic case, like maybe people like me are even getting easy for you because we've been told so many times what it is and then it's not. I don't know. Wow. But a lot of the girls listening have probably been through a lot of doctors, a lot of Western medicine, which we can all agree has a beautiful time and place. I have some doctors who have been really profound in my life. My explant surgeon was one of the best kind of men in the world.
Yeah.
And would you kind of share and speak to maybe some of the patterns that you see as far as why maybe it's not like one root cause always, maybe there's a handful of things going on, and what you're seeing a lot of things be pointed towards, because root cause is kind of a trend word right now.
It is.
But is there really ever just one root cause? And then also, like, we're not going to get this far today, but we can't, well, all of this physical stuff doesn't really matter, right? If we're stressed out and our cortisol is being thrown all over the place, which is where like tapping is such a like beautiful blanket and cover and support for all of it.
Yeah. Every stage of chronic illness, tapping is supportive and containing and really, really good help.
Yeah. Because if we don't, so it's like, I want to say there's not a root cause, but I do want to say there's one root catalyst for like a container, which is really stabilizing the nervous system. And I want you to share, but part of my point is like, I had done the emotional work. I wasn't just helping people. I was doing my work. I was doing the emotional work. I was doing the spiritual work. So like, how come my physical body isn't falling into alignment? Because right now there's also a big trend of some modalities that are like, just as long as your nervous system is stabilized, your body will be healed. As long as your thought process is right, your body will be healed. As long as it's Christianese, as long as you pray about it properly and have enough faith, your body will be healed. And at the point that I finally switched gears to like work with you, and then I panicked and didn't want to, and then I did, it was really the point where I was like, I did all the emotional stuff. I did all the spiritual stuff. Like I did all of the Jesus things and the emotional work. How come my body didn't behave? So it was like, that I was ahead of that trend or that game, right? Of like, no, like get your mind straight, get your heart straight, and your body will follow. Well, then it didn't. So that was a humbling experience for me to know that like, oh no, my body actually does need something. So could you speak to what you're seeing kind of in me, or kind of just in the general population of women who are struggling with illness or chronic illness and don't have answers?
Yeah, this is, I have two parts to this. So I'll start with the patterns that I see most often, and then I'll use you as my example. I see a couple of different patterns that tend to be really popular with cases that come across my desk. Going back to something I mentioned earlier, it's the personality type that is suppressing everything that they're experiencing and burning themselves, taking care of everybody else. I'll include myself in this category because I know you're thinking it.
I didn't even think it. I didn't think it. I promise.
The suppression and the stamping down of us and who God made us, it opens the door to chronic illness. we can, throw back to science, go back to the Kaiser CDC study with the adverse childhood event, the ACE study, where if you experienced anything on this list of different types of, little t and big T traumas as a child while your body and brain and spirit are still developing, then there was, a 70% or higher statistical risk of you developing some type of chronic symptom or disease later in life, So I see that it's a personality type that tends to come in with all of these different physical symptoms. And then there's also the person who has been top of the food chain, like has not experienced true significant resistance or breakdown or, problems in their life where it was 1 day, 1 second, 1 minute that changed their entire life. So those are the patterns. And both of those are spiritual, emotional, mental first before they are physical. And I just think that those parts of our body are our defense system. They are what carry us through, and they are what keep us sustained. And so when those energy bodies are broken, the physical body is going to break down as a result, because the physical body is the outpouring of what we are experiencing in those energy bodies, right? So that answers the pattern question, hopefully, for a case like you where they're not shy to do the emotional work. They love digging deeper and going through that sanctification process, and they kind of lean into it. I believe then that the physical body is, first of all, it's always working for you. Even when you feel crappy, that is a sign of how hard it's working to try to get you to feel better. But I think that's the piece that's left, right? Like, you've taken care of your emotional health, your mental health. I remember in the beginning, you were like, Lisa, I don't really have true stress in my life. And I was like, I have never heard that before in all my years of practice.
At that current moment.
At that current moment. Yes, at that current moment. And so for us, what did that mean? That meant that we could go harder. We could work faster. You started seeing progress like within a couple of weeks, and things started shifting really, really quickly. And now we're doing things that take me like a year, 18 months to get to with most clients. I just tend to work with a type of clientele that's a little bit more weaker and beaten down. And so when someone is so willing and open to that, then we're able to look at the physical body and say, okay, where are the blocks? Where are the discrepancies? Where is the dysresonance showing up physically? And naturally, you're going to be able to read certain parts of your body more than other parts. And so if you're someone that doesn't mind leaning into that inner spiritual work, that's where your strength is. You might not be able to read your physical body as easily, and you don't know what you don't know. Like you said, it's just it's like a progressive journey, and it's all about seasons. You start off in one season, you grow. You're the chick strengthening its wings while you're breaking your way out of the shell. And each step, just goes deeper and deeper.
Do you think that even though there was some like heavy metals and obviously the implants weren't supporting my health, do you think that because I also went through COVID season with one of the most stress I've ever had in my entire life, completely unrelated to COVID, but felt as though I had recovered from that emotionally, could it be that my body took such a large hit emotionally at the time that physically my body just didn't recoup?
Yeah. The nervous system will try to contain itself so tightly in order to not let the ripple effect be felt in the physical body. And so a lot of times for stronger personalities, people who maybe, kind of have been at the top of the food chain and haven't really felt like they're struggling too much, the reason why that 1 minute or that 1 second or that one event can kind of cause the world to come crashing down is because the nervous system has actually been absorbing the shock impact of everything. And so they don't feel like they're having a large reaction to it, but then something inevitably tips that bucket over and that nervous system unravels and you're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. There's other stages too, but
how about once you finally get to rest?
Yeah. Once you finally get to rest, your body is like, oh, we're safe. And the nervous system is like, okay, we get to break now, because that's actually a good time for it to do so. It doesn't experience or come across as a good thing.
I was ready for a break. I was like, I did the work, I did the surgeries, I did the things. And I, am going to just play with my chickens and help women heal. And then I mean, I was worse than I had ever been.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So, what could you give a snippet? Because I keep failing to update all my people. And so also I really sometimes have no idea what you and I are doing together other than like the thing. Could you give like a brief snippet? Because I think it'll give some insight to girls who really are looking for their next safe practitioner, to just hear a little bit about how you work and how you think. Because for me, it was less of how these things work together and more of how you understood them to work together for my unique, right, body.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what are we doing and why?
Oh gosh. I think the biggest lesson that I learned as a patient in all my years of being a patient, going from different countries, looking for doctor after doctor after doctor, being told I was crazy by, family, and losing all your friends, losing my marriage, losing, everything, all the loss that comes along with chronic illness, is you start feeling this overwhelming grief. And so now that I'm a practitioner, I try to incorporate what that person feels like they have lost and what they want to regain as a forefront goal for where we're going. Because I can say, well, Lindsay, you have breast implant illness and that's what we need to recover you from. But like, that doesn't matter because I'm not the person living with those things. Right. And so when your goal is going to be, for example, I want to lower my inflammation because I feel like it is like a physical presence all day long. And I want to be able to eat whatever I want to. Maybe I don't want to have social anxiety. I met the sweetest new patient yesterday where her social anxiety was one of her very top foremost goals that she wanted to work on. I, as a practitioner, can say this, and this physically all needs to be fixed, but that doesn't make me a good practitioner. Right? Because we have an emotional load that we carry. We have a mental load that we carry both before and after chronic illness starts. And that's what I try to incorporate into everything that I do. So my protocols for most clients are always going to have the physical piece, which is, 8 items or less, because at that point you're band-aiding. You should not be taking, how many things were you taking in the beginning? I forget, but I was like, whoa, mama.
Oh, it was like probably 25.
Okay. So there's just so much, but then there's an emotional part to everyone's protocol. And then there's a nervous system part to everyone's protocol. And that's not something I need to address with you because you've solidified so much of that. But for most people, they have not. And so I come at it from, what are your goals? What do you feel like is unlivable for you? And then I try to come and help and facilitate the physical healing that can support those too.
So I'll just give an example. I think what you're talking about, maybe a concept, is I said, I was like a 2 times a day CrossFitter. I know like some people don't like that word CrossFit, but like it was where my mind got stronger. My mental health got stronger. My relationship with my husband got stronger. Like it was a community for me I'd never had, but also, I was really, physically very healthy. And I had a beautiful energy with all the metal in my mouth and all of my implants. Like I had great energy because I was detoxing like crazy. And one of the things that I think maybe you're referring to about wanting to change quickly was I could not even, go on do like any light workout without being sick for anywhere from like 3 days to 3 weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat without feeling sick, I had no appetite. I didn't have an appetite. I mean, like I'm heavier than I've ever been in my entire life because of the inflammation, and I haven't had an appetite for 2.5 years.
Yeah. That was a big piece for you.
It was like, I am a fat girl inside who is Greek and Italian and wants to eat food and loves to eat food and has always eaten food and never worried about my weight. And now I don't have an appetite. Having to eat to nourish my body is very hard. Because it makes me nauseous. It's weird for me. And then to also not to know that like, one, I can't work out to like lose weight right now. And also if I do work out, I'm going to be sick.
Yeah.
Like and I know not to shame my body, not to be mad at my body, not to blame my body, but goodness, like everything felt like a catch-22. So can you just share a little bit about maybe like what support I'm taking and why, even if it's just brief before we go, just to give girls an idea of what that kind of looks like? Or what's your
Sure.
goal? Like, how have you been helping to support my body and what for?
Okay.
The stages.
The approach we're doing with you is foundational in that we need to correct the way that histamine is being released by your immune system. Due to their thinking there's all kinds of different invaders physically inside of your body. So that's a very key underlying piece that we are working on, but also just supporting all of the inflammation, because there's acute inflammation, there's long-term inflammation. It shows up in different parts of your organ systems for you. And that's ultimately creating this metabolic breakdown of, I don't have an appetite, my weight's not budging, and I just don't feel like myself. Like I'm crawling out of my skin. Please help. I don't even recognize my own self. So all of that is deficiency. And so what we're working on is taking the load off of the immune system so that it's not fighting 7 different battles all day, every day. We're slowly getting rid of some of those microbes and pathogens and infections and things so that your immune system can come and be a stronger force against the correct things, not the incorrect things.
Okay.
So we have a couple different things that you're on. I can't, of course, now you're putting me on the spot. I don't recall them off the top of my head, but
I
I
don't expect you to know what I'm taking, but like why? And you just answered that. Like, why? Yeah. What are we doing? Because, and also like my hormones, if my hormones and my immune system were balanced, none of these things could affect me. Right. But there was the day, I'll tell you, like, this is what's been so amazing to me, before we go, is one day I always update you with my little histamine reactions.
I love it.
And I was like, I'm sick and I promise I did not go near mold. I did not work out, and nobody stressed me out or pissed me off. In fact, I had such a good day that my husband and I spent 3 hours in the greenhouse.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, greenhouses are full of mold. So, but like, I don't think like that. And even just those things have helped me to be more cautious. But like, if my hormones were balanced, right, which we'll get there hopefully. And if my immune system was balanced, could I spend time in my greenhouse without getting sick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Your
which
body
is another piece too, is like with a lot of practitioners, it's like mold is bad. Stay away from mold. Don't go near the mold. But what if like there's always going to be mold. Like what if our body can just like breathe it in and breathe it out? That'd be pretty cool. What if we didn't have to be afraid of it?
Mold is supposed to come in and help break down what is already dead. The problem is when it becomes opportunistic and starts feeding off of living tissue. And then, that's when we have a problem. But my practice is founded on the belief that you can heal from anything, no matter what it is. I don't even throw out what you're thinking in your head, because I'm going to tell you, yes, you can heal from it.
What did you heal from? What did you heal from?
Supposed MS and Lyme disease, forced infertility, ovarian cysts, kidney infections, chronic bladder infections, migraines, vestibular disease, autonomic dysfunction. Like I could keep going.
So you're standing here from a perspective of having healed things that are maybe incurable according to Western medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, you feel like you're being handed a death sentence, and in your 20s, that's a really bitter pill to swallow. But healing is always possible. And my job is, I always say it's like part teacher, part coach, part bartender / hairdresser, right? Because I'm going to be holding your hand and supporting you emotionally throughout the process. But I also have the educational background to say, like, for you, Lindsay, I love you to death, but your hormones are the caboose on the train and your immune system is the car in front of that. And your body has prioritized you surviving the last several years of your life over having balanced hormones. And that's just the way that the body works. It was intricately designed, right?
Yeah, so you've never made me feel like anything's an end all be all, or I'm at fault for any of it. Or this is what like really injured me, was if you don't do this, then you won't be well.
Yes.
If you keep doing this, you won't be well. And it's like, God, like that's so painful for for women who want to be well to hear those, it's a lie and it's unkind. And any practitioner who is adding stress and adding confusion should not be in the world of helping anybody heal from anything. It's too painful to the nervous system. For me, as a practitioner of tapping that lowers cortisol and balances the nervous system, any practitioner who says you can't unless, or you have to, is hurting people further. It's just not how it's supposed to be.
There's no blanket protocol. There's no system that is going to suit everybody. You and I have had enough experience of our own with people like that it definitely does end up being more harmful than helpful. I don't feel like tapping could fall into that category because the immune system can't turn on until you're in a parasympathetic state. That's exactly what tapping does, and we've had our sessions together, and you've always been really blunt and frank and honest with me. And like, Lisa, you haven't even touched processing this before. Like, we have to go there. And then afterwards, it's always like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, well, I'm nauseous and I'm still shaking and I have a headache. And you're like, girlfriend, like, this is that coming back out. So there's still going to be a physical response, but it's a healing response. It's not an inflammatory response. And so I don't feel like tapping can really fall into that category because it's not blanket. The technique.
Oh, no, because that's why I've been encouraging lately. A lot of women are picking this tool up. A lot of women are taking it home. A lot of women are joining my groups. But if you do not get the private one-on-one experience that's provided with a practitioner like myself, with someone like you are missing out because I am pinpointing so carefully your unique nervous system trigger.
Exactly.
Balancing it and making you feel safe with it. Like, this is not safe. This is scary. But for some reason, like, my body's pulling into this safety piece and grounding right now. And that's what you're doing on the physical end for people is like, yeah, we all know there's a lot of coaches out there and there's all these programs and there's all these protocols and everybody's doing the same thing. And that's not how our bodies work. And so this physical piece that you provide and the emotional piece that I always say, the second tapping stops working for my clients, I'm also going to stop working. But it's so pinpointed to these exact details and memories and events and physical situations and exposures that nobody else would even know were a thing in your life, right? Like, I say greenhouse and I'm like, greenhouse, and you're like, greenhouse. Like, it's so unique and pinpointed, right? And there's been times we're working together and I'm like, did you just hear what you said? That's exactly the same emotion as what you said happened when you were, 17 or whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh, I never connected. They're the same emotion. So I'm just super excited because I do think that sometimes we have too much information and we don't often have the resources or the tools or the time or the support to apply all of it.
Or the confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the best way for girls to contact you if they do want to reach out to you for support? And also, I have to say this too. I have broken the bank paying cash for, practitioners and supplements and tools. And I'm willing to, because it's my health. I only live in once. But I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it not really bringing me to full health. And I don't feel like you are a bank breaker, just so you know. I don't know what other people feel like, but I just have to say that you're not somebody who's like a $10,000 program. And then, because I hate that. I hear those stories all the time. I think you've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was there. Actually, right before I found tapping, I spent money I definitely did not have as a single mom on a program that I sat for a while and I researched and I went through the application process and I did 2 interviews and I really thought it could help me. And it wasn't too long into it that I realized it was actually causing more damage than it was being helpful. And it sent me into a really bad spot, which is where meeting you actually, I believe, was a gift because I needed it. I was done. I told everybody, like, I'm done. I'm not going to try anymore. Thank you for the compliment though.
Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who, you and I both know people who have paid for big, and you and I are the same. We're like, just right? We just kind of pay as we go and see where we're at and see what we need. And I appreciate that, because there is a part of it for me that feels like, if you're going to charge me 10 grand to fix me, that tells me I'm going to be here for longer than I want to be here. So I just have to say that, because I do feel like if I was in a position where my budget was really, really tight, like it used to be, and I was, or maybe even had like a less supportive husband, like a lot of sick women have, or, a one income and they have none of their own money type of situation, I do feel like you're very like a reasonably priced. I want to say that to women who have been robbed.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
That was
what's the
me.
best?
I was there.
Yeah. And the supplements I'm buying never feel like they're killing me. So what's the best way for girls to contact you?
Probably Instagram or email at this point. On Instagram, it is Lisa Cipkar _IHP. And then email is alwoffice@lisacipkar.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We
Thank
could
you.
do this all day long, and I'm sure we're going to
Good.
be here again, but thank you for taking the time with me, because I think that this conversation was very overdue. I'm so thankful for the trust that was built without it. And also I am just so hopeful and excited for all of the women who might now feel a little bit like they've been doing this alone, or they ran out of options and tools, and now there's more tools. We love these women.
We
Right.
do.
I mean, you
I've
do
met
this.
so many sweethearts through
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Same. I know. Same. They're all beautiful, wonderful, worthy women of living their most whole life. And it's time to really make sure that there's proper information out there and support. So thank you for being part of that and linking arms with me for them.
Thank you for having me, and just for putting words to what my nervous system has been trying to tell me for years, and helping me move through some of those blocks, because I don't believe we're overselling it when we talk about tapping and how transformational it can be for people. I really don't. Yeah. You have a gift. Very grateful.
I also have a lot of words, so I can usually place something. So thank you.